Emily had always believed that her parents loved her in their own quiet way. She told herself that some people were just not good at expressing affection. She convinced herself that their cold voices, their ignored birthdays, and their constant complaints were normal, but on that gray morning, everything she believed shattered in one moment. She had walked downstairs early because she wanted to make tea before leaving for work. She was halfway through the hallway when she heard her mother's voice from the kitchen. Sharp and angry, "She is becoming a burden." "We cannot keep her here anymore," her mother said. Emily froze, her fingers trembling around the edge of the wall. Her father sighed loudly. "I told you this long ago." "We should have sent her to Linda's house years back," her mother replied. "Linda does not want her either. No one wants her. She is useless. She brings nothing." Emily felt something inside her break, as if her heart had been pressed under a heavy stone. She did not move. She could not breathe. She listened because she needed to know if she had heard correctly. Her father continued, "We should just sign the papers and send her off." "I don't care where she goes," her mother muttered. "Exactly, once she's out. We can finally live our lives." Emily covered her mouth with her shaking hand, trying to hold in the sob that threatened to escape. She backed away slowly, her feet cold on the wooden floor. She went to her room and shut the door softly. The walls felt tight around her, as if even they knew the truth now. She sank onto her bed, staring at the carpet, wondering how two people could hate their own daughter so deeply. She whispered to herself, "I'm a burden. That's what they think of me." After several minutes, she forced herself to calm down. She needed answers. She needed proof. Her grandmother had left her a few old boxes in the attic, and Emily suddenly felt a strange pull toward them. She climbed the ladder slowly, wiping her tears as she reached the dusty space above. Inside one of the boxes, she found a folder with her name written in faded ink. Her heart pounded as she opened it. Inside were letters her parents had written to distant relatives, begging them to take her. There were rejection letters. "Harsh and cold," one relative wrote. "We do not want a girl who is so quiet. She seems strange. Keep her." Emily closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks. Her whole life she had tried to behave well. Stay quiet, study hard, follow the rules. She had believed that if she worked hard enough, her parents would someday smile at her, maybe hug her. But now she saw that nothing she did would have ever been enough. She sat on the attic floor for a long time, hugging her knees. The truth settled inside her like ice. Her parents had wanted to get rid of her for years. They never loved her, never planned to keep her. She had always been waiting for a kindness that would never come. When she finally stood up, something inside her felt different. A sort of strength she didn't recognize began growing quietly in her chest. She walked back to her room with slow steps. She looked around at the four walls where she had cried so many nights. This place had never felt like home, and now she knew why. She opened her small suitcase and placed it on the bed. She folded her clothes neatly, her hands steady for the first time that day. She packed her grandmother's old scarf, a notebook, a few snacks, and the little money she had saved. She didn't know where she was going, but she knew she could not stay here anymore. Before leaving, she stepped into the hallway one last time. She could still hear her parents talking in the kitchen, laughing now, relaxed. They did not know their words had wounded her deeper than any knife. They did not know she had heard everything. Emily walked to the front door, opened it slowly, and stepped outside. The cold morning air touched her face. Making her feel strangely alive, she whispered to herself, "I deserve better than this." And with that, she took her first step toward a life she had never imagined. She did not look back, not even once, because she finally understood the truth. And the truth pushed her forward like a silent wind, guiding her into the unknown. Emily walked for almost an hour before she stopped at the small park near the edge of town. She sat on a wooden bench, hugging her suitcase, unsure what to do next. For the first time in her life, she had no plan, no instructions. No one telling her what she should be. The silence around her felt heavy, but not painful like the silence inside her childhood home. She breathed in slowly, letting the cold morning air clear her mind. While thinking about her next step, she remembered something important. Her grandmother had once told her The house is yours. It will protect you someday. Emily had never understood what that meant. At the time, she was only 12, and the idea of a house protecting her felt strange, but now, as she sat alone with nothing but a suitcase and a broken heart, the meaning became clear. Her grandmother's house, the small one on the quiet street across town, was in Emily's name. Her parents had forgotten about it. Or maybe they didn't care enough to remember. Emily stood up slowly, feeling a spark of purpose rise inside her. She walked toward the bus stop and took the next ride to the old neighborhood. When she reached the house, she felt a mix of sadness and comfort wash over her. The house was old, but warm-looking, with peeling paint and a tiny porch where she used to sit with her grandmother. She unlocked the door with the spare key she always kept hidden in her bag. The inside smelled faintly of lavender, exactly the way her grandmother used to keep it. Emily walked through each room, feeling memories rise and fall like soft waves. She touched the kitchen counter where she had helped bake cookies. She looked at the small living room where she had once curled up beside her grandmother to read stories. But the house had one more role to play now. It wasn't just a memory anymore. It was her only chance to build a new life. Emily sat at the dining table and took a deep breath. She whispered, "I'm sorry, Grandma, but I have to let it go." She found the number of a local realtor taped inside one of the kitchen drawers. Her grandmother must have saved it for emergencies. Emily hesitated, then dialed the number with shaking fingers. A gentle-voiced woman answered, and Emily asked if she could come to the house to discuss selling it. Within 2 hours, the realtor arrived. She looked around the house and nodded slowly, saying it had a warm, welcoming charm. Emily explained that she needed a quick sale. The realtor studied her carefully, as if sensing her quiet desperation. She didn't ask too many questions, which made Emily feel safer. She offered a fair price. Enough for Emily to start somewhere new, Emily agreed, her heart aching at the thought of saying goodbye to the only place that ever felt like home. For the next 2 days, Emily stayed in the house. She cleaned every room, washed the windows, and folded the curtains. She sat on the porch during the evenings, wrapped in a blanket. Remembering the stories her grandmother used to tell, she knew she could change her mind. But every painful memory of her parents reminded her that going back was impossible. On the morning of the sale, Emily stood in the empty living room. The realtor handed her the final papers and a check. Emily stared at the amount, feeling a strange mix of fear and freedom. This money meant she could disappear. She could choose who she wanted to be. No one could send her away again after the realtor left. Emily walked through the house one final time. She touched the doorway where her grandmother once measured her height. She pressed her hand to the cool window glass and whispered, "Thank you." Then she stepped outside. Locking the door behind her, she placed the key under the flower pot, just as her grandmother always did, and for the last time, she walked down the quiet street. At the corner, she paused and looked back, not with sadness but with gratitude. The house had protected her after all. It gave her a way to escape the life that was breaking her. It gave her the means to build something new. Emily took a deep breath and turned away. She headed toward the bus station with her suitcase, the check hidden safely in her coat. She didn't know exactly where she would go, but she knew she needed distance. Somewhere far from the town where her parents treated her like a burden, somewhere she could breathe freely. Her journey into the unknown had begun, and with every step, her fear slowly shifted into quiet determination. Emily had never traveled far from her small town, but now, with the money from the house tucked safely inside her coat, she felt brave enough to step into places she had only seen on maps. She took a long bus ride toward the Colorado Highlands, choosing a destination at random because she did not want anyone to trace her steps. She watched mountains grow larger outside the window. Rising like giants covered in snow and pine, something inside her felt drawn to the wild, as if freedom lived in the cold wind that rushed between the peaks. When the bus reached a small mountain town, Emily stepped onto the quiet road. Everything felt different here. The air was sharper, cleaner, as if it had never been touched by lies or cruelty. She bought a warm jacket from a thrift store, a small backpack, and a map from a local shop. The shopkeeper warned her about the changing weather in the mountains, but Emily simply nodded, determined to keep going with her map in hand. She followed a narrow trail that led away from the town and into the wilderness. The sound of rushing water echoed somewhere in the distance. Birds called from the treetops, and patches of sunlight broke through the tall pines. Emily felt a strange peace settle inside her. For the first time in years, no one was yelling, no one was judging. No one was planning to send her away. The trail grew steeper as she climbed. Her boots sank into patches of soft snow. And the wind grew colder. Still, Emily pushed forward, whispering to herself that she had to keep moving. Every step felt like she was walking farther from her past and closer to the life she deserved. But the mountains were not gentle. Clouds gathered faster than she expected. Thick and dark like heavy blankets across the sky, a sudden wind roared through the trees, bending branches and scattering snow across her path. Emily stopped and looked around. Confused, she checked her map, but the lines and markings no longer matched what she saw in front of her. The storm was coming too fast, faster than anything she had imagined. Within minutes, snowflakes started falling. Slow at first, then heavier and sharper, stinging her skin like tiny needles. The path disappeared under a fresh layer of white. Emily's breath came out in quick clouds of steam. She tightened her jacket and tried to retrace her steps. But the trail was gone, swallowed by the storm. She turned left, then right. But every direction looked the same: tall trees, deep snow, and the sound of wind howling through the branches. Her heart pounded as fear crept up her spine. She had no shelter, no clear path, and no one who knew where she was. The realization hit her hard. She was completely alone in a storm she wasn't prepared for. Emily tried to stay calm. She remembered a survival book she once read for fun. It said to stay near natural shelter and avoid wandering too far in heavy snow. So she moved toward a fallen tree that created a small arch above the ground. She crawled underneath, wrapping her arms around herself to stay warm. Her fingers turned numb as she struggled to build a fire. She used a small lighter she bought at the store, but the wind kept blowing it out. Her teeth chattered uncontrollably. The cold seeped into her bones. Her breathing grew uneven as the storm thickened around her. "Please, stay calm," she whispered to herself. But tears slipped down her cheeks, freezing almost instantly. She felt foolish for thinking she could survive out here alone. She felt small, fragile, and lost. The wilderness did not care about broken hearts or painful childhoods. It swallowed everything without mercy. Hours passed slowly. The storm grew harsher. Darkness falling earlier than she expected. Her body grew weaker. Her thoughts grew heavy and slow. She leaned against the tree trunk, trying to stay awake. But her eyes kept closing. She whispered, "I can't die here," but her voice was barely a breath. Just before she drifted into unconsciousness, she heard something faint, a low, crunching sound, like footsteps moving carefully across the snow. Her eyes opened slightly through the blur of falling snow. She saw a dark shape approaching from the forest. Tall, steady, and moving with purpose. Fear and hope rose inside her at the same time. She tried to call out, but her voice was too weak. The shadow came closer until she could make out the shape of a man wrapped in furs. A spear rested in his hand, and dark hair whipped behind him in the wind. Emily blinked slowly, unsure if she was dreaming. The man knelt beside her, his expression unreadable. He placed a warm hand on her shoulder. Checking her breathing, his presence felt calm, steady, and strangely familiar, as if the wilderness itself had sent him. Then everything went dark, and Emily slipped into unconsciousness. Unaware that her life had just crossed paths with someone who would change it forever. When Emily woke, the world felt softer than the storm she remembered. Her eyelids were heavy and she blinked slowly. Trying to make sense of where she was, the sky above her was pale, stretching across the mountains like a thin sheet of morning light. The storm had passed, leaving only quiet snow and broken clouds drifting lazily overhead. She tried to sit up, but a sharp ache shot through her ankle. She winced and collapsed back against something warm. That was when she noticed she was no longer under the fallen tree. Someone had moved her, someone strong enough to lift her from the frozen shelter. Emily turned her head and saw a small fire crackling nearby. Heat shimmered around it, dancing softly against the cold breeze. Beside the fire sat the man she had seen before collapsing. He sat with calm posture, sharpening a wooden spear with a stone. His clothes were made of thick fur and leather. Decorated with beadwork in muted colors, his long hair was tied back loosely, strands falling around his face in the soft morning wind. His eyes were dark and steady. Focused on his task, Emily swallowed hard, unsure whether to be afraid or grateful, but something about his presence felt peaceful. As if he belonged to the land itself, the man looked up as soon as she moved. Their eyes met, and Emily froze. His gaze wasn't harsh or threatening. It was quiet, observant, as if he were studying a frightened bird. "You awake," he said softly. His voice deep but gentle. It wasn't a question. Just a simple statement. Emily nodded slowly. Though her throat felt dry, Who are you?" she whispered, her breath misting in the cold air. The man set down the spear and moved closer. He knelt beside her with steady movements. "I am Tahu," he said, tapping his chest lightly with 2 fingers. "Ute," he added, gesturing to the mountains and the land around them. Emily recognized the word. She remembered reading about the Ute people in a school book long ago. Tahu checked her ankle with careful hands. He spoke little, but every movement showed skill and patience. "It is swollen," he said calmly. "But not broken." Emily felt a strange mix of relief and embarrassment. She whispered, "Thank you," though her voice shook slightly. He nodded once, accepting her words without pride or discomfort. Then he offered her a small wooden cup filled with warm broth. Emily hesitated only a moment before taking it. She sipped slowly, letting the heat spread through her chest. Her fingers tingled as life returned to them. "Why did you help me?" she asked softly. Tahu looked at her for a long moment before answering. "Storm kills alone," he said simply. "I saw you. You needed help." His words were direct, yet gentle, as if compassion was carved into him rather than spoken. Emily pulled the blanket tighter around herself. She looked at Tahu's steady hands as he added more wood to the fire. He moved with a quiet confidence, as if every action had purpose. She wondered how long he had watched her before stepping in, how far he had walked through the storm to reach her. "Where am I?" she asked, glancing at the unfamiliar mountain ridge behind them. Tahu pointed toward the distant trees. "My people's land," he said. High trail of the North Ridge. Emily looked around at the endless white hills and tall pines. She felt small compared to the vastness, but strangely safe too. Tahu stood and gestured toward a pack near the fire. He pulled out a small pouch filled with crushed herbs. He mixed them with snow to form a cold paste and gently spread it around her ankle. Emily winced at first, but the coolness soon eased the throbbing pain. "You rest," Tahu said, stepping back. "I will find wood," he added before turning toward the trees. As he walked away, Emily watched him move effortlessly through the snow. He left deep footprints that filled almost instantly with drifting flakes. While he was gone, Emily studied the surroundings. The fire crackled softly, its warmth a small miracle in the freezing morning. A rabbit scurried across the snow near a fallen log. Leaving tiny tracks behind, the forest felt alive again. No longer threatening, but whispering with calm winter quiet when Tahu returned. He carried more wood and a small bundle of berries wrapped in cloth. He sat beside her and placed the bundle near the fire to warm slightly. "You need strength," he said. Handing her a few berries, Emily tasted them slowly, surprised by their sweetness. As the day stretched on, Tahu spoke in short, simple sentences. Emily listened, feeling her fear melt little by little. His presence was steady, like the mountains themselves. He did not ask why she was alone. He did not question her story or her mistakes. He simply helped her live another day. By evening, the sky turned soft pink above the peaks. The fire glowed warm against the growing cold. Tahu looked at her ankle again and nodded thoughtfully. "Tomorrow," he said quietly, "we go to camp." Emily felt her heart tremble with uncertainty, but something inside her whispered that trusting him might be the safest choice she had. She wrapped the blanket tightly around her and lay back against the soft snow. Tahu kept watch beside the fire, silent and strong. and for the first time in a long time, Emily fell asleep feeling protected, not alone. Emily woke to the smell of wood smoke and the soft crunch of snow under footsteps. For a moment she forgot where she was. Then she saw Tahu kneeling beside the fire, adding fresh branches to keep the flames alive. The mountain air was colder than the day before, but the light was kinder. The storm clouds had broken apart, leaving thin stripes of blue sky above them. Tahu turned when he sensed her movement. "You wake," he said gently, handing her a warm cup of tea made from pine needles. Emily accepted it carefully, the heat warming her palms. "Thank you," she whispered, still amazed that someone who didn't know her had saved her life after she finished the tea. Tahu checked her ankle again. The swelling had gone down, but the pain was still sharp when she tried to move. "You walk slow," he said. "I help." Emily nodded, feeling both shy and grateful. She wasn't used to anyone offering help without asking for something in return. Tahu packed his belongings with practiced ease. He moved with quiet confidence. As if guiding lost travelers was simply part of life, Emily tried to stand. Wincing as her weight pressed on her injured ankle, Tahu stepped beside her and offered his arm. She hesitated only a second before taking it. His presence felt steady, stronger than anything she had felt in months. The journey toward his camp was slow. Tahu walked at her pace. Adjusting every step to help her balance, they moved through tall pines and across frozen streams. Emily listened to the crunching snow and the sound of birds calling overhead. Nature felt alive again, gentle and welcoming after some time. She saw thin lines of smoke rising in the distance. Tahu pointed toward them. "Camp," he said. Emily felt a flutter of nervousness. She wondered what his people would think of her. A stranger, lost and fragile, arriving without warning. As they approached the clearing, she saw several small lodges made of wood and hides. Children ran between them, chasing each other and laughing. Women tended to fires, while men carved wood or prepared tools. Everyone moved with purpose, yet the air felt peaceful. When Tahu entered the clearing, the people greeted him with nods of respect. But their eyes soon shifted toward Emily. She felt their quiet curiosity. Not unkind, but careful. Tahu raised a hand slightly, as if signaling that she was under his protection. A woman with silver-streaked hair stepped forward. Her eyes were warm, filled with a wisdom that made Emily relax a little. "This is my Aunt Kiona," Tahu said softly. Kiona approached Emily with a gentle smile. "You are safe here," she said, her voice calm and comforting. Kiona led Emily into one of the lodges. Inside, the air was warm and smelled of herbs and cedar. Soft hides covered the floor, and a fire burned quietly in the center. Kiona motioned for Emily to sit while she prepared a small bowl of crushed plants. "You have been in a storm," Kiona said. Noticing Emily's bruises and tired eyes, Emily nodded, feeling tears gather but refusing to let them fall. Kiona placed the herbal mixture on Emily's ankle and wrapped it with cloth. "This will help," she said gently. "You are strong to survive such cold." Emily lowered her eyes, humbled by the kindness. For the next few hours, Emily rested near the fire. She listened to the soft hum of voices outside and the distant laughter of children. The warmth spread slowly through her limbs, easing the ache in her bones. She felt something she hadn't felt in a long time, safe. Later in the afternoon, Tahu entered the lodge carrying a small bowl of stew. He placed it beside her and sat on the other side of the fire. Emily thanked him, eating slowly, savoring the rich broth and tender vegetables. Tahu watched her with quiet satisfaction, as if making sure she was truly recovering. "How long can I stay?" Emily asked, softly after finishing her meal. Tahu met her eyes. "As long as you need," he said. His words sat gently in her heart. No one had ever told her that before, not even her own parents. Kiona returned moments later and gave Emily a small woven blanket. "Tonight you rest here," she said. "Tomorrow we talk." Emily nodded, grateful beyond words, as evening settled over the camp. The sky turned soft shades of lavender and gold. Tahu guided Emily outside to get fresh air. The mountains glowed in the fading light, and the air smelled of pine and smoke. Children waved at her shyly, and she gave them a small smile in return. She looked at Tahu, unsure how to express everything she felt, "Why did you help me?" she asked once again. Her voice softer than before. Tahu took a moment before answering. "You were alone," he said simply. "No one should fight the mountains alone." Emily felt the words settle deep in her chest. For the first time in her life, someone saw her as worth saving, not because of what she could give, but because she was a person who deserved care that night. Wrapped in a warm blanket and lying beside a gentle fire, Emily closed her eyes with a sense of peace she hadn't known since childhood. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but she knew she wasn't alone anymore, and that was enough. Emily spent the next few days healing in the warm lodge under Kiona's care. Her ankle improved, the swelling reduced, and she began walking slowly around the camp with the help of a wooden stick Tahu made for her. She learned simple tasks from the women, like grinding corn, washing hides, and gathering small branches for the fires. Every day felt calmer than the life she left behind. Each sunrise brought her a sense of steady belonging. For the first time, she didn't wake with fear. She didn't flinch at loud voices. She didn't feel unwanted. She was simply Emily, a girl learning how to breathe again one morning. Tahu brought her a small carved pendant made from smooth river stone. "It means new path," he said, placing it in her hand. Emily traced the pattern with her thumb, touched by the quiet gift. "You are walking one now," Tahu added before leaving to help the hunters. His words stayed with her long after he disappeared among the pines. Life in the camp moved gently. Children played in the snow. Elders shared stories around the fire, and the mountains watched over them like ancient guardians. Emily often sat near the edge of the camp to look at the distant peaks. She felt small, but safe in their shadow. She felt as if the wilderness had taken her pain and turned it into strength, piece by piece. But peace rarely lasts forever. The past has a way of returning when least expected. And Emily's past was not done with her yet. On a cold afternoon, Emily was helping Kiona hang herbs to dry when she heard unfamiliar voices nearby. They were faint at first, carried by the wind through the trees. Kiona paused and listened, her calm eyes sharpening. Tahu appeared moments later, stepping quickly into the lodge. "There are strangers on the trail," he said. "They look for someone." Emily felt the blood drain from her face. Her hands shook as she lowered the bundle of herbs. "Are they? Are they from the town?" she asked. Barely whispering, Tahu studied her, his gaze steady. "They show paper," he said. "They ask for a girl." Emily's heart pounded violently. She knew exactly what papers they carried. Her parents must have gone to the police, pretending she was unstable or missing. Not because they cared, but because they wanted control. They wanted the house money. They wanted to drag her back to the life she escaped. Tahu stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Do you want to be found?" he asked. Emily shook her head quickly. "No, I can't go back, please." "I can't." The fear in her voice made something sharp flicker into Tahu's eyes. A protective tension, as if he had just decided something silently. Kiona placed a firm but gentle hand on Emily's shoulder. "You are safe here," she said. "But we must be careful," Emily nodded, but her breath still came fast. She felt like the world was closing around her again, like her parents' shadows had reached even the mountains. Tahu guided her outside and toward the far edge of the camp. "Stay here," he said softly, placing her behind a cluster of thick pines. He stood in front of her, as if shielding her from sight. Emily clutched the carved pendant around her neck. Her eyes stung with tears she tried hard to hold back. Through the trees, she saw figures approaching the trail below. 2 officers in winter jackets. Holding papers behind them walked her father. His face red with frustration, her mother trudged beside him. Looking annoyed rather than worried, Emily's heart twisted painfully. She remembered nights when she begged them for a scrap of kindness. She remembered birthdays they ignored. She remembered she overheard the words that broke her. "She is a burden. We should send her away." The officers approached a group of hunters on the trail. Emily watched Tahu from behind the trees. He stood tall, calm, and unreadable. The officers showed the paper, pointing at the drawing of her face. Emily felt her breath catch as one of the hunters glanced toward the camp. But Tahu stepped forward, speaking in a slow, firm tone. Emily couldn't hear the exact words, but she saw the hunter's posture shift. He turned back to the officers and shook his head. Tahu's voice carried across the snow in a quiet warning tone, a tone that made the strangers hesitate. Then one of the officers sighed and folded the paper. The group turned back down the trail, walking away with tired steps. Emily pressed both hands over her mouth, shaking with relief when Tahu returned to her hiding spot. She met his eyes with overwhelming gratitude. "They didn't find you," he said softly. "They won't return soon." Emily trembled. I don't know how to thank you." Tahu shook his head. "You owe nothing," he said. "This land protects those who need protection." Kiona walked toward them, her steps slow and steady. "We will talk tonight," she said gently. "You must choose your path now," Emily nodded, wiping her tears. She looked at the camp, the place that healed her. She looked at Tahu, the man who stood between her and the world that hurt her. For the first time in her life, she felt something powerful inside her, a sense of belonging so deep it scared her. But she knew one thing with absolute clarity. She was not going back. Not now. Not ever. Her past had tried to reclaim her, but she wasn't the same frightened girl anymore. That night, the campfire burned brighter than usual. The flames rose tall, throwing warm light across the circle of people gathered around it. Emily sat quietly beside Kiona, wrapped in a soft woven blanket. Her ankle rested on a small cushion, but it barely hurt anymore. What hurt instead was the fear still beating inside her chest. Fear that her past would find her again. Fear that she would be dragged back into a life that had never felt like hers. Tahu stood near the fire, speaking softly with two elders. Their low voices blended with the crackling wood from time to time. Tahu looked toward Emily, checking if she was all right. His steady gaze made her feel braver, like she wasn't facing this battle alone. Once the conversations quieted, Kiona placed a comforting hand on Emily's shoulder. "It is time," Kiona said softly. Emily swallowed hard, unsure what this moment meant, but she nodded, because she knew she needed to face her truth fully. Kiona guided her into the center of the circle. Where the fire warmed her face, the elders watched her with patience, not judgment. They waited for her to speak first. Emily held the pendant Tahu had given her, the one carved with the meaning new path. She felt the cool stone press into her palm, grounding her. When she finally spoke, her voice trembled but did not break. "I came here because I had nowhere else to go," she said. The fire crackled softly as she continued. "My parents tried to send me away. They didn't want me. They never did." Her breath wavered, but she kept going. "I thought running into the mountains meant running into danger, but instead, I found people who treated me with kindness." Silence followed her words. But it wasn't cold silence. It was the quiet of people listening with their hearts. Tahu stepped closer, his presence warm and steady beside her. "You were brave to walk alone," he said. "Not many survived the storms." Emily lowered her eyes, feeling tears threaten to rise again. "But you did," he added gently. Kiona spoke next, her voice soft, yet strong. "This land brings people together for a reason," she said. "You survived because you were meant to reach us." Emily felt her chest tighten. For so long she had believed she had no worth, yet here among strangers, she heard words she had waited her whole life to hear. After a moment, one of the elders asked quietly, "What do you want, Emily?" It was a simple question, but it echoed deeply inside her. She had never been asked what she wanted. Her whole life had been shaped by decisions others made for her. Now, she had to choose for herself. Emily looked at the fire. She watched the flames rise and fall, like her own fears and hopes twisting together. "I want to stay," she said finally, her voice firmer than she expected. "I feel safe here. I feel seen." Her words felt like truth lifting from her soul, the kind of truth she had buried for years. The elders exchanged slow nods. Kiona smiled warmly. Tahu let out a quiet breath, almost a sigh of relief. "Then you stay," Kiona said. "You make a life here," Emily felt warmth spread through her chest, a feeling she hadn't known in years. Belonging. Real, honest belonging. The next morning, the camp felt different to Emily, or maybe she felt different within it. Children waved to her as she walked. Women greeted her with friendly smiles. And Tahu kept a quiet watch over her, though he never hovered too closely. Over the next few weeks, Emily learned how to tend fires, gather herbs, and patch torn clothes. She listened to the elders' stories and laughed with the children. Her ankle healed completely, and she began walking without the stick. The mountains no longer felt intimidating. They felt like guardians, strong and ancient. Watching over her sometimes when she walked near the ridge, she thought of her parents, not with anger, but with a quiet acceptance. They had shaped her pain. But they no longer controlled her path. They no longer had the power to break her. She had found something they never gave her family, even without blood, one evening. As the sun dipped behind the peaks, Tahu approached her. He stood beside her in comfortable silence. After a while, he said softly, "You are strong now," Emily smiled, the wind brushing her hair across her cheek. "I had help," she replied, looking at him with gentle gratitude. Tahu's eyes warmed as he nodded once. "Everyone walks alone until they find their place," he said. "And you have found yours." Emily looked over the camp, the fires glowing like small stars in the dusk. She breathed deeply, letting the cool air fill her lungs. This was her life now, not a life chosen for her, not a life shaped by fear, but a life she had chosen, a life she had earned, a life she could finally call her own. And as night settled over the mountains, Emily stepped toward the firelight with steady steps. Her past behind her, her future open and wide, her heart stronger than ever, choosing her own life at last.